everybody. Welcome to the Straight Outta BS podcast. Thank you guys so much for your continued support. I really appreciate it. I have a pinched nerve in my lower back today, so that's why I'm not going to be on camera today, but my guest will. Just in case I have to stand up and stretch or whatnot. I just don't want to distract people. And I don't know, I'm kind of just self-conscious right now with my back. But anyways, thank you guys so much for your continued support. I'm going to keep on trying to put those videos out there, even if I'm dealing with some stuff. It's really important. This work's important. So I want to do a moment of silence for the person still struggling with intrusive thoughts or addiction or anything like that. So on the count of 3, I'm going to do a moment of silence. 1, 2, 3. Okay, thank you for that. And I want to just give you guys a quick reminder. If you guys support my work, like 3 things you can do, like just that are free and take like less than a second, is to like subscribe if you're not already. I'm trying to reach 1,000 subscribers before my birthday on March 15th, and I'm at like 889 or something like that. So I'm really close, and it would mean a lot to make it by my birthday. So if you're not subscribing, liking the videos and sharing the videos just everywhere really helps amplify our voice and get more people to see these stories and testimonials. And all it can take sometimes is just one person seeing one video or hearing one thing in a video to prevent them from sending their kid away, or to even realize that I'm not alone in this after feeling alone for so long. So just realize that that's really important. And the more you share the videos and like them, and the more algorithm picks it up, and the more new people end up seeing the videos. So I want to thank everybody that's supported the podcast so far, and anybody that's donated to the podcast. It's never expected. It's always super appreciated. But thank you to you guys. Thanks to my Patreon members. Anybody that's joined the channel, special thanks to you guys. And without further ado, I want to introduce my guest for the day. Go ahead and introduce yourself and where you went and what years.
Hi, I'm Jennifer, and I went to Sunhawk Academy in St. George, Utah from 1997 to 1998.
Okay, and walk us through your childhood and what led up to you being sent away.
Well, I'm going to do my best here. This is uncomfortable for me, but I do think that it's important to share my story because I found your podcast and was able to look up Sunhawk Academy where I went, and a couple popped up. They weren't people that I went. And so I'm hoping that if anybody that I was there with sees your podcast and, is able to see me, and, they find strength, or, in seeing other people tell their stories. So childhood, only child, I started, in with the wrong crowd and using drugs, and dropped out of school, ran away. I like to think that it, wasn't extreme. I lived in a, nice neighborhood in Pacific Grove, California. Nice community, middle class. And something just wasn't right at all. So I easily, diverted from the norm and quit school. I started like an independent study program, and then I broke my leg when I was 15. And, classic story of opiate, over medicated. The doctors just gave me a shit ton of pills for a broken leg. And, by the time I knew what had happened, I was like crushing them up in the morning and eating them with yogurt for breakfast. And, I guess I wrote about it in a journal, and my mom read it, and I had no idea they were planning on this. If they had I remember them threatening a couple of times, like, we'll send you to military school or something, but I never took them seriously. If I had had some sort of intervention, it wouldn't have been necessary to go to the extremes of like the classic story, of getting kidnapped in the middle of the night and taken to Utah.
Okay. And I assume you got transported then?
Yep. October 2nd, 1997. I had gone to sleep like fully clothed, I remember, shoes and everything. And it was like maybe 2 o'clock in the morning. My light flips on and my mom walks into my room. And I remember what she was wearing. She had like this poofy floral robe, and she said, "Jennifer, we know that you've been depressed, and these people are here to take you somewhere that's going to make you all better." And, like my life flashed before my eyes. These strangers, large, people walked into my room and picked me up out of bed, and my parents had a backpack packed for me. And I remember it was a Sesame Street backpack. I was 17, but I had a Sesame Street backpack that was packed for me. And I pleaded, don't do this. It was done. There's no way out once they're there.
Yeah.
Had like, visions of running for my life, and, I think I just like gave up and like lost all, control of my body, and they like had to pick me up and put me in the van. I was like not gonna walk. I was just gonna play dead or something.
Yeah.
And put me in the van and sat, on either side of me in the back of the van. And it's like I don't know, 13-hour drive from Pacific Grove, California to St. George, Utah.
Yeah.
It was a long way, long haul,
Yeah. Did they threaten you with handcuffs? Did they handcuff you?
I don't I don't remember being handcuffed, but they did have me in restraint.
Okay.
Yeah. There was a lot of that,
Okay.
a lot of restraining going on. I remember that's the word that they used.
Okay. Did
Yeah.
they stop before you got there and offer to get you like a burger or something to eat and say like this is the last time you're gonna have something to eat? Like offer
Exactly.
you cigarettes, did like stuff like that?
No cigarettes, nothing like that. I mean, food, they were like, here, have some food and maybe a granola bar, but they were Mormon, and Mormons don't eat sugar or caffeine or anything. So it was like, the bare minimum.
Yeah. How do you know they were Mormon? What
They
makes you
told
say
me.
they're okay? Okay,
Yeah.
interesting.
Yeah, they're like very proud of, what they do.
Yeah, of
And
course.
it's fine, but not that part of it.
Yeah, no, I don't know. I don't see how you could be proud of that. I mean, I guess if you think you're saving somebody's life, but how
Well, that's
delusional
exactly it. It's like savior complex.
but it's a delusional savior complex.
Sure
'Cause you
is.
don't really know where those kids are going. You know
Right.
what I mean? You don't really know the place
And
you're
you don't
taking.
know who owns that company and who's banking off
Yeah.
of it.
Exactly. Okay. What do you remember about when you first got there?
Um, I remember I was given a red jumpsuit and had the laces taken out of my shoes and was given the whole rundown. Like, you know, um, you can't do or say anything. Like, we're gonna tell your parents this, and this, and, compliance is key. Um, I still have, I have this letter. This is jumping forward a little bit, but somewhere in there, you know, I went on this like comply versus conform, and my mom sent me a letter. I should have actually brought that up, and it's down in storage and read it to you. I have like all my letters, you know, it's like almost 30 years ago. So I have all of my letters that my mom sent me while I was in there. I wish I would have kept my journal, but I burned that in some
Yeah.
sort of ritual, you know. But yeah, they said you're gonna have to comply and um, do all of these things, and you know, they didn't say much, but it felt like a script, and I was definitely going to be there till I was 18. I had just turned 17, so I was looking at a year in this place.
Okay.
And then they took me upstairs, and I walked into, you know, a room which looked like a pseudo schoolroom, but had like chairs stacked and little desks and like a kitchen area. It was one big room. It was a cinder block building behind a Chevron in St. George, Utah. I mean, it was like so track mall janky. It was gross. You know, there was like a Sonic Burger across the street, just nothing. Red Rocks. And I walked into all these kids, you know, looking at me. Turns out I was the oldest one there. Um, and I sat down, and this girl slipped me a mini Snickers. And she said, "This is the last sugar you're going to have." And it was, you know, until the wilderness, um, where I won a bag of sugar for starting a bow drill fire. So that was the first day. I don't remember much. It's very much a blur. It was just the most devastating thing I've ever experienced. I was a vegetarian at the time, and they really didn't like that. You know, they didn't like having to consider changing their menu for somebody. So they told me it was all for show, and I was just, you know, crying wolf, and basically gaslit me into, you know, thinking that I was doing it all for attention, and then told my parents that. And you know, this is like a few days into it, and they're trying to tell my parents that I'm doing it all for attention. And my mom's like, well, no. So that was her first clue that, you know, they were lying. But it was another like 11 months before they were able to get me out of there.
Okay. And how long after you got there did they give you your first phone call, or did you get one?
I didn't get one.
Okay. And how long?
It was weeks. I think it was 5 weeks before I was able to call my parents.
Okay. Okay.
And I had already been out to the wilderness because, you know, another thing was after she gave me the Snickers, the girl started talking, whispering about, you're going to go out to the wilderness. So any day now, you're going to be blindfolded and, you know, given a pack and dumped in the desert to push a cart through the desert. You know, in October, mind you, it's getting cold.
Okay. So was this program mostly, sorry, it's been so long since I've done an interview with somebody from this place. Was this one of those wilderness ones where it was mostly focused around the wilderness, or was there?
It was both.
Okay.
Yeah, so I arrived at the like late stage of like they were just getting started. They had only been operating for maybe 8 months, and they were on the final stage of their what they called host homes. So all the kids would stay at this cinder block building all day, and then they would get trucked in vans to different, Mormon host homes where like they have like huge houses, and they would designate the basement for these kids. So each host home would get like 5 or 6 kids. And then after I got there and then going to the wilderness, came back. So about 5 weeks into me being there, they had enough money to rent a hotel. So they put bunk beds in hotel rooms, and we lived in a hotel.
Interesting that you were.
I know, cinder block building during the day, hotel at night. And this, I think, I can't remember when they bought their own facility, but it was like 5 years they were doing this, and then they bought their own facility, and that's what it was for, I guess 10 years before shutting down. They're long gone.
Okay. And was there points and levels? Like, how would you graduate from the program?
Yeah, points, levels, if you, conformed, it was definitely conforming, not complying. If you conformed, then, you got a little bead on your necklace or whatever, and you could wear mascara and, have phone calls. And I never was able to make it. I did not make it. So what I did, I kept like the shit went down there, like it was really hard. It was co-ed, and they medicated us. So, I mean, I did stuff like saved like my triazidone because they gave us sleeping pills. So I'd save it up and then take like a week's worth in a day and just like sleep all day. Nobody knew. I was just asleep on the floor. And nobody said anything. So I do stuff like that. There's sexual abuse. There was, provocation. The
Hold on.
guard.
Back up a second ago. The sexual abuse, was it grooming? Was it staff on student? Was it student on student? What kind of
Student on student.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah. I didn't witness any staff on student. The staff they were like, the daytime staff were like sweet little Mormon kids who thought they were doing the right thing. And then nighttime staff was like Samoan and Hawaiian recruited Mormons who were like huge and terrifying. And if you like stepped out of line, you were down on the ground, hogtied.
Okay. Okay. So was this with the student on student? Was it consensual or was it forced? Like, or was it both? Was there both?
It was both. There was just all kinds of shenanigans going on.
Okay. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. I just wanted to illustrate that this kind of stuff goes on.
No, I welcome the questions.
Yeah. So okay, and then so you got points. It's just interesting how you got there when they were just starting. Did they have you guys working like free labor, stuff like that? Did they have you doing any that kind of? Okay.
No, we were in school. And I went to graduate college in 2014, and they needed my transcripts for me to graduate. And I couldn't find them. And I couldn't find proof that I had graduated high school, even though they told me that I was basically in my last year of high school and that I would walk out of there with a diploma. I never had any physical diploma, so I went and tried to find, any information, found out that Sunhawk had shut down, and ended up driving to Utah and seeing the place all over again and like trying to find information, and got hooked up with someone. It was like I couldn't find anything. It was 2014,
Yeah.
there was not a lot of talk about it. And one person was like gathering information, and it was like pretty underground.
Yeah.
And so I got a list of like all the employees that were there, some of the kids that were there.
Interesting.
And then I started researching further and discovered that Bain Capital owned the place, which is Mitt Romney's company, and was like totally blown away by that, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. Like the Republican Party owns these places. Now the documentary's out, and like there's, you know, Paris Hilton's doing her thing, and it's all like coming to light, which is like so justifying.
Yeah. No, for real. Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like it's not just the Republican Party. I feel like everybody's involved. I feel like everything's connected,
Yeah.
personally. But I've been researching this a long time. I've interviewed a lot of people, and I have my own thoughts and my own rabbit holes that I've gone down that seem to connect to the troubled teen industry. Really far down the line, but I don't want to get into that right now. But that I'd be off on a tangent. But so was it? Did you find yourself like trying to get points but not able to get points? Did you find yourself targeted, or did you just like not give a fucking like I'm just not gonna do anything? Fuck this. Like what was?
I oscillated between trying to get points and fuck this.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah. With a heavy like fuck this attitude. I mean, I short of like trying to escape, you know, which people did. I mean, people jumped out of windows, broke their legs. I went through like I basically like this is a tough one. I threw myself through a glass shower door so that I could get taken to the hospital to try and escape from the hospital.
What happened with that?
I just got really cut up. Like I have scars all over my arms and bled and freaked everyone out, and was taken to the hospital and handcuffed to the gurney.
Of course, yeah.
Yep.
And then were you consequenced when you got back?
Oh yeah, they said they were gonna keep me until I was 21, and that my parents had, I mean, this is bullshit, but that my parents had agreed that I relinquish my rights, and I was gonna be there till I was 21. And yeah, so it was a long time of, you know, just waiting to get a phone call and trying to convince my parents that this was like a really bad place for me and a bad place for anyone, you know.
Yeah.
But that like I like didn't have it in me to do what they wanted me to do, you know? Like that's not me, and I can't fucking do it. And like I'm just wasting my time here, and I'm wasting their money, so like just let me come home and I'll try and like figure it out from there, you know. But this is not the right course of action. And finally in like June or July, I convinced them to send me back out to the wilderness, and then to a ropes course, and then back to the wilderness. So I did 6 weeks in the desert.
Yeah.
Yeah, 6 fucking weeks in the desert, which was like so insane. And like no shower, you know, and like it's hot. So the first time it was like, you know, late fall, and the second time it was early summer or midsummer. So, yeah, so I got late August is when I got out after doing 6 weeks in the desert, right before my 18th birthday.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I went through wilderness too at the place I went, but it was just like it was marketed as like, oh well, they're doing good, so good in the program, they reached level 3 or 4 or whatever fucking level it was. I can't really remember, but they're just like, oh well, you've earned it, now you can go in wilderness, and like they made it seem like it was a fucking privilege. I mean, it just because we got away from the facility. That was
Exactly.
the only fucking reason that it was somewhat chill. But they had us like, and I'm afraid, I'm like terrified of being alone, especially like in the wilderness. And they had us like camp a certain distance away from everybody, and you had to go find your own spot. And then they didn't have you set up your tent until like it's dark and it's fucking, you're in the forest and it's fucking pitch black and you don't have any fucking lights. And they're just like, okay, go fucking make your camp. She's like, you can't buddy up. And if you're close to somebody, like, then you're in trouble. But yeah, I know
Yeah,
what
that's
that's
tough.
like. Yeah, it was in Montana, so it wasn't quite as bad as what you
Dang.
went through probably. But luckily I didn't go in the winter time, but it was still pretty horrible. I ended up getting the whole group lost, and then everybody hated me. So
Oh no.
that was fucking, that was
Were
shitty.
you, was it fresh? Like, because I was like coming off of, drugs and sugar and life, when they first sent me out. So that's like, it can be really rough for people, who are like detoxing to be out in the fucking desert with no medical care, you know?
Yeah, no, I actually didn't even really use hard drugs at all. I didn't use the hard drugs actually at all until I got out of the program. The program actually taught me about how amazing hard drugs are and how why
Exactly.
the fuck wouldn't you do hard drugs after you've been through this shit?
Right.
Literally, that's what people were telling me. They're like, why would you not at least try and experience some heaven after going through this shit?
What was the reason you went in then?
I just started uh, smoking weed and drinking and running away and just doing normal teenage behavior, like I say. Like, if they
Yeah.
had just let me continue doing what I was doing, I don't think I ever would have been even interested in hard drugs.
Right.
But the fact that they sent me away and gave up on me and all this shit, I don't know. It's just like I was raised to like not do hard drugs. Like my dad was a chemist major and like did all the right things to like prepare me. Like, this is what these drugs do. This is why you shouldn't do them. This is literally what it does to your body scientifically. Like all this shit. And so yeah, and he just did a really good job looking back on it, educating me and trying to deter me away from that stuff. But I would have smoked weed and I would have drank occasionally, but probably would have gotten shit-faced drunk a few times, but I would have learned my lesson. I feel like I would have pulled through, and I feel like it would have been a lot better for me personally. But for me
Right.
personally, it was just like misbehavior, pretty much. They just wanted me to act a certain way and do certain things in a certain way, and just,
Right.
that's
Yeah,
not happening.
my parents treated me like I had betrayed them because I wasn't doing what they expected me to do,
Yeah,
you know. And I mean, come to find out years later, I don't know how much I want to disclose on here, but like come to find out years later that like there was so much shit going on in my family that I didn't know about, but I was picking up on subconsciously,
yeah,
that like my parents were keeping secrets and like no kidding, no wonder I rebelled or whatever, um there was unspoken shit going on, and then they blame me for being too sensitive, I guess.
yeah. No, yeah, you were their outlet to lash
Yeah.
out on. Okay, how long were you there total?
11 months.
Okay. And did you graduate or did you get pulled?
I got pulled.
Okay. And what level did you make it to by the time you, like, what was the highest level you
4
achieved?
out of 8.
There's 8 levels? Holy shit.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Was there any levels where they had you call out other students? Like, essentially you played the roles of a policeman.
Yeah,
Okay. What level
totally.
was, what level was,
That was 5. I never got past 4. I could I was watching my friends like get converted to Mormonism and like completely change and like go all crazy cult. So it scared me so much, like I can do physical harm, I can do sexual abuse, but like, psychological, like you're gonna like be in a cult now? No. Like that was like the most terrifying thing I witnessed there was my friends converting to Mormonism and Christianity and, the program.
okay. And so was Mormonism and Christianity, was that part of leveling up? Did you have to Did you have to get baptized or something, or what was
No, and it wasn't part of leveling up, but it was part of the wilderness. Like you were allowed 2 books. You were allowed 2 books, and you had to either take the Bible or the Book of Mormon or both.
Oh, okay. So indoctrination. Okay. Um, but it's not but they can always play the defense that it was never indoctrination because we gave them the book and they chose to read it. So it's self-indoctrination. But it's still indoctrination.
Yeah, I wonder about this place. I would love to do more research and find out more about like what exactly shut them down, if it was finances, if it was lack of staff, if it was some sort of harm thing. But like this can't be legal,
No, it's not.
and like some sort of restitution, like that's why I'm like writing my story, I'm telling my story, I'm following as many people that are involved in this as possible, and like hopefully there can be some sort of restitution, like somebody still has my parents' money.
Yeah. No. I recognize that sentiment for sure, and I hope that you get some closure, or whatever you need. I hope we all hope for fucking like reimbursement and stuff like that, and I hope that you can get it.
Yeah.
Okay. What was the hardest part about being there, and how did you deal with it?
I think, wow. I had a really hard time being away from the people that I love. I felt alienated, and I wrote a lot. I wrote in a journal a lot. That's how I dealt with it. Yeah. It was also hard watching other people, like I said, get converted to the program. My closest friends there, they changed. And I was able to lose myself in books. They let me have books. They let me have like some books that I'm surprised they let me have, like a couple of books on witchcraft, and I don't really think they knew what they were. And so I just read. I read and I wrote. And God damn, if I wish I wish I had those writings, those journal entries. Like it would I probably like wouldn't be able to handle it. That's why I burned it,
Yeah.
Like I've done a lot of work. Like I've done a lot of therapy after this, like, but it's still there. It's still like very much a part of me, but it would be nice to like be able to answer that question truthfully, like from my own writing of like what I was focused on. I was really focused on the people that I love, my friends.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so they let you have witchcraft books there? That's crazy.
Like, yeah, I had a couple of books on witchcraft that my mom had given me, and I don't think they even looked at them. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yep.
What was the stupidest thing you ever got a consequence for? Like the 3 stupidest things you ever got a consequence for?
Like stupid on my part or stupid on their part?
Just the most retarded, like the stupidest one. Like not because you're stupid, just like
Because their
retarded
rules are
ass,
stupid.
retarded ass rules. Like what's the stupidest shit you ever got called out on?
Hmm. I can't remember.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's totally fine. What
Again,
happened?
it was 28 years ago, so.
Yeah. No, that's totally how many people tried to run and what was their policy on runners? Did they say like what happens if you run to deter you? Like how did they deter you from running is essentially the question.
Yeah, jail and, juvenile hall, you're going to be here till you're 18. Lots of runners. I would say, I mean, I guess not lots, but, comparatively, but the time I was there, maybe 7 runners, a couple like, violent, dramatic ones where they threw a chair out the window, and we're like 2 stories up, threw a chair out the window and then jumped and like broke legs. A couple of those, like 2 of those. And then other just random, you know, getting out from under the restraints. And one of them got all the way to Las Vegas. I remember it was a really great story. We were all like huddled around, tell us the story, when he got back. Really shitty food.
Okay. All of
Yeah.
it was shitty.
Oh, so shitty. Just the shittiest, Like not even Campbell's soup, just like government cheese and government soup. Mushy ass government vegetables.
No good. No good.
No. Like
Uh,
I see pictures of myself there and I was dead inside. Like my eyes are just like glossed over and I'm dead. And, they offered meds, like, you want some sleeping pills? And I'm like, hell yes, just medicate me and wake me up when this is over.
yeah. What kind of medications did they have you on besides the trazodone? And were you on medications before you went there?
And no medication before I went. And I only remember the triazidone because I would save it and do the whole like once a week I would sleep all day.
Okay.
That was my shtick, and all the kids knew I was doing it. I don't know how it didn't get out.
Okay. And what do you remember about when you first or when you got pulled? Like what do you remember about that day?
Well, I don't really remember that day. I remember like fearing, just a lot of fear that it wasn't going to happen, that something would happen that would keep me in there until I was 21.
So they told you were gonna leave?
Yeah, so I talked them into letting me out if I went to the wilderness. Like that was, I don't know, they were like, well, you could go to the wilderness for 6 weeks and, and then get out, or you can stay here till you're 21. And I'm like, I'll go to the wilderness. Maybe they were charging my parents more or something. Um, but that was like in payment for getting out. So like I did the 6 weeks of wilderness and then I waited like a week for my parents to come get me. And I remember that week just being like, I couldn't sleep, riddled with anxiety that I wasn't getting out, you know. Lots of people in there with like really bad, like physical anxiety, sick to their stomach, picking their skin, cutting, biting their nails off, like all the way down to like one girl bit, like completely removed her fingernails and was bleeding all over the place all the time.
That's no bueno. That's no bueno. Okay. Did they try and hook you up with a life contract before you went home? Like a
What is
contract you had
that?
to. It's like essentially they make you type up or they type up for you like a contract that you end up signing. It's like essentially a program at home
I
that you
kind
live
of
by?
remember that. Yeah. I kind of remember that. Also, this is jogging a memory that when I first got there, I had to write out my story and then read it to my parents.
Yeah, confession letter.
Yes.
Yeah.
And they like manipulated you and told, like, they would say, we know everything, so you have
Yeah.
to be completely honest.
Yeah.
You know, like, we know all this stuff, so you just have to be completely honest and tell, like, what? You have to tell your parents all your sexual partners and like all the things that you've done, and they back you up together, you know, like your parents enter the room, you're in the room, and they back you up and sit you down, and then you have to read this confessional to your fucking parents.
That sounds really similar to parent-child seminar 1 when you first meet your parents at the place I went.
Like,
Very
why
similar.
would parents want to hear any of that? I don't want to hear that from my kids, you
I
know?
don't know. Yeah. They're just like they just want, I think it's more about just having control over you and so they can make you feel bad about what you did regardless, you know?
Yeah, shame you,
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
slut.
Yeah. Yeah. Um okay, what happened when you got home? What do you remember about when you got home?
I had like, you know, very little time before I turned 18, and I talked my parents into giving me $5,000 and I left. So I left home at 17, literally days after getting back, and I moved 5 hours away and got my own apartment and started a new life. And, you know, like, cut it off. I just dove into like an entirely different life.
Okay.
But I'm like really glad I had that money. You know, it was like a trust fund from my grandma that I was supposed to get when I turned 18, but I talked them into it, you know, like, why wait? Just give me that money and I'll be out of your hair.
Yeah. Um any hard drug addiction after you got out of the program?
Yeah, like that's when the real fun began, you know. Um, I was like fresh with all of this like insane angst and um I hated my parents. It took me so many years to like forgive them, you know, and now of course I'm older and wiser, and it's like, you know, they're victims too, and you know, they were sold this thing out of fear, and you know, nobody's to blame except for, you know, whoever has my parents' money.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, so lots of really, really fucked up behavior on my part for the next like 3 years until I stopped.
And
I
what
mean,
got it?
not stopped, but like stopped with the extreme self-destruction.
Like the hard drugs?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and what made you stop?
Um, like a jail and being pregnant in
Okay.
jail. And yeah, so like incomprehensible, pitiful demoralization, you know, looking in a little jail mirror and saying, oh, wow, you're pregnant.
Do you feel like if you weren't pregnant that jail would have sorted you out? Do you feel like there was enough resources in jail to
No,
rehabilitate
I
people? No?
mean, no. I mean, I think that I went, you know, I was treated different. It was a whole different experience
Okay.
for me in there, being pregnant and um, like having the resources that I had. Um, I was lucky, I guess.
Okay. I asked that question because a lot of people are really keen on sending all these addicts to jail because that will for sure get them clean. And it's just like,
Right.
do you not fucking understand how this works? Like,
Right. And a
they're not
law
gonna
was
do
just
shit
passed
until
in
they want to do it, dude.
California that it's gonna make that even worse.
Yeah. And so it's just like, until I was ready to stop, there's nothing anybody could say. There's nothing anybody could do. It doesn't fucking matter. I'm going to wait that shit out, and I'm going to use that as even more of a reason to get even higher next time because I've just been locked up for so long. So I just personally, I know it helps like maybe like 0.00001% of people that go to jail will
Yeah.
actually get out and stay clean. It's
Right.
it's one thing to like be clean when you're in jail because of course you're separated for the most part from the drug. I know you can get it in there if you really want to, but you're separated from it. So for some people that's enough, but I don't personally feel being an ex addict that's enough for someone like me who's just like I'm just going to use that as fuel to want to get higher. So I just have my personal thoughts on that. If it worked for you, that's fine. If you're listening to this and you went to jail and got clean, power to you. I'm very grateful that that worked for you. But
No. I
for me, it
mean,
hurt so much.
I never really like I got clean like from jail. I went to rehab, but and then I got clean for like 4 years. But then, you know, it always happens with like accidents, and then having to go to the hospital and then given morphine or something.
Yeah.
Um, that's what happens to me is I'll be clean for a little while and then something bad will happen and I'll have to take drugs and it's like whoosh all the way back, to square one.
Yeah, I'm like afraid like to even go to the ER. Like with this back pain, like I was about to go to the ER the other night because it was like seriously brought me to tears. This shit hurts so fucking bad. But like, I don't even know what the fuck I did to get it. But anyways, they're like, go. My mom's like, go to the ER. And I'm just like, nah, because I have so many reasons. But for one, like, they're gonna try and give me like I'm already on methadone, like I'm already taking over the counter painkillers. If I'm still in pain, what the fuck are they gonna give me besides opiates? And I don't want opiates. I don't want to be given opiates. I don't want a prescription. I don't want any of that shit. Like,
Right.
so it's just like there's nothing they can do for me. So I'd rather just be at home and suffer by myself than be somewhere where I feel like I'm stuck now.
If I'm in
I have to
pain,
stay.
Toradol helps, gabapentin sometimes, depending on the type of pain. Um, a lot of ibuprofen.
Yeah,
Uh,
ibuprofen's my go-to.
Sometimes prednisone, I'll also like take a cortisone shot any old day.
Does that help? Cortisone?
It helped me. I mean, I have like nerve pain, and I don't know if I did this to myself or what,
Yeah, that's
but
what I'm experiencing right now is pinched nerve. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, I've had a couple of cortisone shots like in my wrists for carpal tunnel and then in my lower spine for a herniated disc.
Okay, see, that's exactly what I'm dealing with
Yeah.
is lower back pinched nerve.
Yeah, I dealt
So
with that for years and just started getting better. Thank goodness. I was taking kratom for a little while. I mean,
what
that's a
what
whole
what helped you the most? Like, do you have any like tips?
pelvic tilts, Kegels, kratom, ibuprofen,
Okay, and lots
walking,
of rest and water and stuff.
water, rest, walking, like being slow, but like staying moving.
Yeah, I've been pacing a lot.
Hmm.
I've been pacing a lot. But yeah, so I definitely relate with that. But okay. What have you struggled with the most as a result of being in this place in Sunhawk Academy?
Uh, Lots of social issues, social anxiety. Um, I don't know if I would have been so out of control with my addiction if I hadn't gone to this place. There's really no telling. Um, but I've done a lot of work with social anxiety, making friends, being okay in a crowd. It's definitely helping to like be older, in my 20s and 30s. I was just an absolute like anxious mess. And now I'm like, finally, I don't give a shit anymore,
Yeah. Yeah, no, I feel that.
Yeah.
Okay. If you could go back in a time machine and not go through Sunhawk Academy, would you do it, and why?
I would, only if I get to hang on to the memory of doing it. Like if I could have both experiences simultaneously, just because I
Yeah.
want to see like what my life would be like without it.
Yeah.
I know what my life was like with it. But yeah, it would be nice to know, like, am I
Yeah.
normal? You
Yeah.
know?
Yeah. No, for sure.
Yeah. Like, did I do the things that I did as a result? Like, were those 3 years that after Sunhawk, like a result of Sunhawk, or would I have done that shit without it?
Yeah. No, I've contemplated the same questions for sure. Um, where are you with your parents? Have they seen the program? Have you talked to them about how the how the program affected you?
Yeah, not my dad so much. He's, a little tortoise in a shell.
Hmm.
But my mom and I, every once in a while, bring it up. What's funny is about 10 years ago, she brought it up at a like family reunion, like in front of everybody. And I was so embarrassed. And before I knew what was happening, they all like slammed her. Like, how could you do that? Oh, that's unconscionable. Like, slammed her. And I was like, oh, wow, like these people have my back, So I just stayed quiet and listened to everybody like chime in on their opinions about this stuff. And she shut up, because she was still like coming from a place of, we had to and blah, blah, blah. And then, listening to other people and their opinion about it, she started changing her tune. And then, the last 10 years have been basically like healing from that and talking about it every once in a while and going through like suggesting, Mom, there's a new documentary. You might want to watch it, and sending her little things about like laws being passed and what people are doing, you know. Um, yeah.
Okay. Okay. And what do you think would have helped you instead of being sent away?
Uh, Intervention from family and friends, community, I had like really good people in my life. And I was able to salvage some relationships afterwards. But it took a long time. It took many years. It took a lot of effort. It took a lot of therapy. Um, but like definitely some sort of community intervention, um, prevention, a lot of prevention, a lot of like destigmatizing this shit. Cause like, how are we supposed to operate in this world that's on fire and like, I'm the problem, Like, stop assuming that the person is the problem and like look around us, Like, of course, people are freaking out, and this is a really difficult world to live in. So there needs to be, more community prevention.
Okay. And is there anything else you want people to know about your experience, or anything that you might tell a parent thinking about sending their kid to a place like this?
Yeah, look further. There's help out there, and there are resources, and use it as a last resort if you feel you must. But there are definitely resources out there, and I would actually be happy to like help anybody navigate that system, if they needed help.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show. And if you want to find that letter and like record it, and then I'll try and include it in the video somewhere.
Yeah,
Or
that would be
yeah,
great.
yeah, we can do that. And then
Yeah.
so
Thanks for having me,
yeah,
and
no problem.
thank you for what you do. This is pretty rad.
Thanks, I appreciate it.
Yeah.
I'm glad that I'm able to help people. And if you ever want to do part 2, my platform's always open, because I know for a lot of people, a lot of stuff comes up, or they're like, I forgot to say that, or whatever. So
I knew
just
that
let
was
me
going to
know. I'll
happen.
be here.
Yeah.
You have my email, and we'll make it happen.
All right.
And if you've watched so far in the video, please do me a huge favor. It's completely free and takes less than a second. Hit the like button, subscribe if you're not already, and share these out there to like everywhere. Let's get the word out there about these places and keep the momentum up. We will catch you on the next one. Bye, everybody.